you of that. All right, so a lot of us, actually, I want to point out something that CD did originally. CD, what answer did you originally come up with? 10, right? How did you know 10 worked?
I worked it out.
You worked it out. What do you mean by you worked it out? Did you use a property of inequality? I thought you just substituted 10 in.
Multiple. No, I did with the 2 times 2.49.
Okay. Now, is that a property that you're using? One of the properties of inequality? Is it even distributive? It's not multiplied by multiple things. It is just 2 times. That's just simplifying.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Right? And then from there, you substituted a number in, right? So, did you try multiple numbers out?
Yeah, I tried 8 at first.
Okay, so did 8 make this inequality true? It was less than 60. So, what did you get when you substituted 8 in? Do you remember? $42.32. So is 8 a solution?
I just don't think that's the question, though.
I mean, you can think it's not a question, but I mean, what does it literally say? It asks,
Yeah, it's like, how many can he buy? But I feel like it's him going in there and being like, I just bought 2 big waters, that's how much they were, now I got 55, oh, whatever.
okay, but let me ask this question.
How many pounds can I buy with this amount of money?
But it doesn't say what is the maximum he could buy. And here's the distinction, right? He has $55 more left. But if 8 pounds of food would feed everyone, does he need to buy more food? No. I mean, he could have extra, but he doesn't need to have it. And that's what we want to recognize is, yes, this is a limit on how much he can buy, but he doesn't necessarily have to buy that much. If he gets by on 2 pounds, would it make sense to buy 10 pounds? No. So, but I'm going to ask the question again because I need you to focus on this. Is 8 a solution?
Yeah.
Yes. Why do we know that's a solution? There we go. Right, y'all are correct that it is less than 60, but the key wording is it makes that inequality true. Okay, so here's something I want you to do. When we're dealing with inequalities, make a number line. Okay? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. All right. So was 8 a solution? Yes, it was. Okay? Then what was the next number you tried? You did try 9, and when you substituted 9 in, what'd you get? So remember, this is one of the beauties of these calculators. The memory function is you can just scroll up if you don't delete it. Yeah, what? Wait, did you add the 4498 to that? Okay, and I don't think you did it here either.
No, I did. That's what probably not.
Gotcha. So what is the, adding the 498 to it, what do I get? Be like 47.
It's like 52.49. 50 for the
Yeah, this one would be, I think, 4730. This is 50 what?
52.50.
Right? So that is one thing to clarify. So is 9 a solution?
Yeah.
Yes? So let me ask you this, what about 6? If we know we can buy 8 and we can buy 9, is 6 going to be a solution? Yes? What about 4?
Yeah.
What about 4.5?
Yes.
And this is why it's important to pay attention to context, because you can buy half a pound of food, right? So 5 as well? What about 5.5? So what could we do, instead of drawing individual points there, what could I draw in there? Just a squiggly line or a line, darkening it in. So I know that I can go all the way up to 9, and then what's the next number you tried? 10, okay? And so 4.98 plus 5.29 times 10 needs to be less than or equal to 60, and then what'd you get with that? You got how much? 57.88. And so 10 works as well, so I can go all the way up to here. But I want to point this out, this guessing and checking method, is it working?
Yes.
Is it efficient?
No.
No. So this is why we don't just want to guess and check, we want to know how to solve. All right? Ashton, you had a different strategy for this, and I think a lot of us ended up falling upon this strategy, but Ashton, how did you approach this?
I figured out how much the water would be, and then I subtracted that from 60.
Okay, just from 60?
From 60 and the other side of the equation.
Be careful with your language. Other side of the inequality. Did you make an equation?
No.
Okay, so inequality, right? Because notice, what is 498 minus 498?
0.
That's 0, sweet, right? Now, when we had equations, we call these properties of equality. Is this going to be a property of equality now, though? Nope, this is going to be a property of inequality. Is it any different? Nope. It's just we need to be aware it's an inequality. There are a couple of properties that are different for inequalities. But what do you think the properties of inequality do? What did the properties of equality do? Made them the same. What's the mathematical term for that? Equivalent, right? When we have properties of equality, it made equivalent equalities or equations. What are the properties of inequality going to do? Same thing. So it's going to create what kind of inequalities?
True. Equivalent.
Equivalent inequalities, which will have the same solutions, right? That's what we want to recognize is the reason why we need to call them properties of inequality is because they create equivalent inequalities. Right? That's the whole point. So 5.29p is less than or equal to, what was it, 55.02? That inequality, is it easier to look at than this one? Is it equivalent? So is it going to have the same solutions? That's the whole point. Now what's the last step? Divide by 5.29. And what's 5.29 divided by 5.29? What is it? 1. Is this last, and so it's 10 point, and this freaked DJ out, right? Got like a 0, 0. I thought I saw a 7 in there, and then just kept going. It was a really ugly decimal.
008.
008. Man, I just misremembered that. All right. Is that possible to get a decimal like that?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, like, the deli will no longer be able to get that decimal. Like, I would imagine it stops at 10.4 pounds. But I want you to notice, is this easier than just guessing and checking to find multiple solutions? Heck yeah. Notice what this statement says is the number of pounds that, what's his name? Kieran. I can't figure out if that's that is a boy. His. Okay? It happens. But Kieran, right? So Kieran can buy how much food?
10.4008.
Is it just 10.4008? 10.4008 or below or less, right? So I'll go to 10.4, like roughly here. Say again. Going this way? What do y'all think? Can I draw a line going like this?
Yeah.
One thing I started to do because of students I had the very first year I taught, to make it clear, I go up and then I go to the side.
Hey, no, he can't buy negative amounts of food.
Ooh.
Then the supermarket's gonna have to.
Yeah, can you buy negative amounts of food? No, you can't give food back. That's not what he's going to do.
They open.
That's a great thing to notice, and I'm glad you picked it up without me having to say something. So where would I have to stop? 0. So it's not just, in this case, that p is less than or equal to 10.408 or 008. What we would say is that this is a compound inequality because p needs to be greater than or equal to what number? 0, right? Notice how p is literally between 0 and 10.4008. So, please note that, right? Yes, I know a bunch of us were thinking, well, he wants the maximum, but like, do you really want to spend more money than you have to? No. So spend the amount of money you need to, so he can just buy less than 10.4 pounds. KJ, did you want to say something?
Totally unrelated, but you got some on the bottom of each sheet.
Thank you. Gotta love it when students leave stuff in the classroom. Ew.
Do you have any
Roadie.
snacks?
Huh?
Do you have any snacks?
No.
You should bring snacks as prizes. That would get us more engaged. Like, oh, you got the answer right, you know? Cheese whiz.
Hey, what grade are you in?
11.
11th?
Mhm.
So you're not in 6th?
I still eat though, right? I'm a human.
You are correct.
I'm correct.
Even though it's a joke, my point is when you're in high school, you gotta make those decisions.
To eat?
No, you gotta make those decisions to be engaged. I'm
Well,
doing what
yeah,
I
but
can.
I'm saying if you want me to be more motivated to be engaged, you have to make me, like, math is not motivating to me. I'm not like, math, you know, but I'm like, what cheeses, you know? So if you got them together, that would, you know, help with the process.
I'll pray about it.
You know.
So, there we go. Here's something I want to add in because I do want you to start getting used to this. There is an interval notation, a way to write this numerically instead of having to draw it out. I'll go ahead and tell you, on test, you need to solve inequalities, you need to be able to graph the inequalities, and then you need to be able to write this using interval notation. Okay? Here is how interval notation works. Make a note on this paper and make sure you note to yourself, this is interval notation. So, the way that interval notation works is you write the minimum value, comma, and you write the maximum value. We're going to add a little bit more to it, but you write the minimum value, comma, the maximum value. The reason why it is called an interval is because we are indicating it's the interval between these two numbers. It's everything in between these two numbers. So for this problem, what would the minimum be? The minimum be 0, comma, and I'll round it at that 10.4. That's the minimum and that's the maximum. We also need to be able to indicate whether you can equal that number or not. When you can equal the number, you're going to use a bracket. Number, let's say value can be equaled.
Can I just say that thing means equal?
You can. Alright, so the bracket means that the value can be equaled. When the value cannot be equaled, we're going to use a parenthesis. What? So, can you, and that's why I say equaled or included, can he buy 0 pounds of food? I mean, it wouldn't make sense, but could he?
That wouldn't be buying it though.
Correct. So, I mean, okay, so maybe we put an open point here. Okay, so we put an open point there. So value can not be equaled or valued, and that, so it depends. This is part of the reason why I want you to justify yourself, because I would have argued that you could use a bracket there because you can equal that. But if you make the argument, well, he can't or won't buy 0 pounds of food, well then it'd be an open point, not a closed one. And what would I put on the 0? Parenthesis.
But then when you put a bracket on the 2 points.
Can he buy 10.4 pounds of food? So that number can be equaled or included. So it's a minimum, comma, a maximum.
But why would the 0 just not be included anyway? Because you could put 2 brackets if you put it at 0.01, which is an amount of food you can buy.
Yes, you could buy 0.01, but couldn't you also buy 0.005?
No, not this.
Not at the supermarket, but I mean, like, is that food still?
Yeah.
Yes. Could you buy 0.0005? You see how I can keep getting closer and closer and closer to 0? So that's why we just say 0 cannot be included, which just means whatever the smallest number bigger than 0 is, can be. Yeah. That's a great question. So when we write our solutions for these inequalities, we need to use both graphs or number lines and this interval notation. We good with those ideas?
Yeah.
Ready to look at the next problem? Get some more practice in? But also, Gracie, this is why I don't stand in a lecture the whole day, because I get it. It is really boring to hear someone lecture, especially at 8 a.m. in the morning. That's why I go work within groups. That's why.
No, it's fine, I just like food.
Right. I should have said that. I know you just want food. Like, let's be real here. I get it. I
Like,
want
I'm
food
fine with
too.
talking to people and stuff, but like, you know,
Right.
I would be more engaged.
So 20.2, Han is, oh, really quickly, I did want to point out, I meant to mention this earlier, subtraction, right, property of inequality, create an equivalent inequality. We divided by 5.29 on both sides, that created an equivalent inequality. There's one time when inequalities are different and then from equations, and I'll show that then. I'll get to that in a second. Alright, 20.2, gasoline in the tank. Han is about to mow some lawns in his neighborhood. His lawnmower has a 5-gallon fuel tank, but Han is not sure how much gasoline is in the tank. He knows, however, that the lawnmower uses 0.4 gallons of gasoline per hour of mowing. What are all possible values for X, the number of hours Han can mow without refilling the lawnmower? Write one or more inequalities to represent your response. Be prepared to explain or show your reasoning. Notice you don't necessarily have to use an inequality here. Figure out how much he could mow, and then write an inequality here. If you want to go ahead and start with the inequality, you totally can. Once you finish that, yeah, that's 20.3. We'll get to that in a second. But work on 20.2 first. Let's get to work.
What